But now let's talk about the Future Fund. And to discuss, I'm joined by Perth Mayor Basil Zempilas and commentator Jason Morrison. Welcome to you both. Well, the Treasurer has rewritten the $230 billion Future Fund to prioritise investments in green energy, housing and infrastructure. Now, this is the first time the federal government has actually mandated specific asset classes for the fund, and we've seen it be widely criticised today. The first Future Fund chairman, David Murray, he slammed the idea. He said it could jeopardise returns and also would risk the fund's independence. Now, the Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, disagreed. Here's what he had to say.
But David Murray is not on this occasion correct. He is factually wrong to make the comments that he is making. The fund will be required to consider the national priorities in its investment decisions where possible, where appropriate and consistent with strong returns.
But Opposition Leader Peter Dutton was furious about this change to the Future Fund. Here he was in Parliament.
Labor is now raiding the nation's nest egg to cover its economic failures. Prime Minister, why are Australians paying for the Albanese government's economic incompetence?
Basil, now this was always going to be a controversial move, the idea of using an independent body for political purposes. Do you think this is concerning?
Independent is the key word here. The Future Fund was set up some time ago to look after the future generations of Australians and in particular safeguard their superannuation, to make sure that subsequent generations of Australians can be looked after and know that their savings are safe. So independence being the key word means it is not for the government of the day, of whichever persuasion, to be meddling and suggesting to the board that they make certain investments in particular priority areas of the government of that day. Infrastructure, green energy, new technologies, as it turns out in this instance. And if Jim Chalmers is absolutely right, well, they would be investing in these things anyway, because we know the independent board's priority is to maximise returns. So let the independent board do what they do best. They'll find the winners. It's not for government to be directing them.
Yeah, look, and we saw that, Peter Costello as well has come out in a lengthy interview with The Australian. He said that the Future Fund was never set up to be a political slush fund to finance, as you say, Basil, the whims of the government of the day. Jason, I think the moment that Greg Combet came in, replacing Costello, there was always a risk that something like this was going to happen.
Yeah, they put one of their boys in who had no track record at all in running a fund of this calibre, and look what's happened. It's become a plaything. The thing that frightens me about this is that to have Chalmers, who really in life, in business has achieved that, tell someone like Murray and criticise Costello and criticise the fund for that matter, that 18 years ago started with about 50 billion in the bank and is now up around 220 billion. It doesn't make losses, it does well, it does very, very well, and it is well ahead of the tide of its obligations of 4 or 5% growth. It's doing exceptionally well and its job. And here's this bloke that's done not very much in his life other than outside of politics, telling them how they should do things and what investments they should dip their investment eyes towards. I find it staggering, but I find the arrogance of the man to be more there. No one is really shocked this is what Labor does, because Labor has a habit of doing what it can with its institutions in order to achieve its outcome, and we've seen that for really generations in this country. But this is a step too far. And if he was so wise about these kind of investments, you've got to stop and wonder, why isn't the government doing it itself? And there's a good damn reason for that, is because the returns are simply not there and the money is not there. So leave the super fund alone.
Well, I think this is going to continue to be a big issue. It could even become a pivotal election issue. So we're going to keep following this. Now, social media giants could be slapped with a $50 million fine. This is under the new proposed legislation by the Albanese government to make sure that under 16s are not on social media sites. So any company that systematically breaches the age verification laws would face this financial penalty. Now, not everyone's on board with this. Independent Senator Jackie Lambie was on Sky earlier. She criticised Labor for not providing the actual draft legislation. Have a look.
It is absolutely despicable. How serious is the government that they want this through and we haven't even seen a draft? You know, what do they want to do? Just put it in there without us looking at it? I'm sorry, but there might be things where I can make amendments to make it even better. And same with other people out there making those amendments to make it better. Well, give us a bloody draft.
Now, Elon Musk has also criticised this on X. He said, and I quote, "seems like a backdoor way to control access to the internet by all Australians." Now, Basil, Musk's point, and there's actually a correction on Albanese's X post that says the legislation will require age verification of all users, including adults, to use social media. We don't know necessarily if this is true because we haven't seen the legislation, but Basil, if that is true, do you think it's going too far?
I think it is. At the moment, by the way, you can give your date of birth to X, and I think that allows you to be fast-tracked when you might be trying to see certain types of contact that have some sort of limitations on it. So that already exists, but it's an opt-in or opt-out. If it was mandatory, then it is going a step too far. But I am in the camp that says, listen, we've wanted to bring social media usage under control for our younger people for some time. We've spoken about it. Now, here we are trying something. I wouldn't like the pile-on that's happening right at the moment to go on unfettered because we've got to give something a go. And we know these giants can do stuff if they need to. If they really want to, they can. Let's give it a try and see how it works out. But Jackie Lambie is right. She should be able to see the legislation. We should all be able to see it.
Well, Jason, it's also unclear how social media platforms are meant to police this.
Yeah, look, I differ with you, Basil, on this. I do the parenting in my household. I control it. Now, before I left here, I was the bastard of the night.
You control the parenting. Jason, I know your wife, Heidi, and I'm sure she would disagree with your claim just then that you do all the parenting.
We control it. I mean, okay. I tell you, the parenting I control here is a thing. You pull it out and they can't play on it anymore. That's how you're in control of it. And I think, you know, I would like the government to solve the problem we have with the kids fighting or with a whole lot of other things going on. But there fundamentally comes back to a point, it's your job. And I don't think that the solution here is to find a government solution. I've got a 12-year-old who can find his way around anything. And the only thing he can't find his way around is me pulling the thing out of the wall. That's the only thing he can't stop yet. And, you know, and I think it's sort of at the stage now where we can go and hope there's a solution here and we can go and pray that the government gets the policy things right. But you're down to kids who have a desire to want to do something. And you don't have to go too far in life to find that kids find their way around their parents' rules all the time. And, you know, right now there's 14-year-olds sitting in parks drinking grog and they went and bought it illegally as well. They'll always find a way. The only thing that will stop it is by parents doing their job, not by relying on Elon Musk's coding or by Anthony Albanese's legislation. And I just think this is such an utter waste of time. And I hope it falls down because I do have the concerns that have been expressed that we're giving them a little inch here and you know what will happen next. And I don't trust this mob.